I didn't come to the king's palace to save a bloodline. I came with scrolls and strategies, determined to argue against the very traditions that turned women like me into breeding contracts and bargaining chips. I was the noble Omega daughter with a sharp tongue, a crowded dinner table of siblings, and a family who wanted influence, not romance. Then one reckless night with Alpha King Edward, too much wine, too much stubbornness, too much heat, shattered 3 decades of rumors that he was cursed to be heirless. When the healers whispered that I carried his child, the kingdom roared with celebration. My parents saw a throne, his council saw stability, but beneath my skin, something else stirred older than crowns, wilder than any wolf's howl. Every time Edward touched me, the air thickened, his wolf torn between bowing and devouring. This is not just the story of the only woman who gave the Alpha King an heir. It is the story of the power I carry, the danger we ignite together, and the choice I will have to make between the life everyone expects and the one I dare to claim as my own. The palace is prettier than the stories ever admit. From the moment our carriage passes beneath the iron gates, every stone and spire seems designed to remind visitors that this is the center of the kingdom, the place where decisions are carved into law and bloodlines are measured like currency. Gold filigree catches the late sun along the walls, and the banners of the royal pack ripple in the wind, deep blue and silver, like a storm about to break. My father sits opposite me, fingers smoothing the crease in his sleeve for the 10th time. "Remember why we're here, Tamara," he says. "Treaties, trade routes, the coastal border. Speak clearly, don't antagonize, and if the king takes an interest, I'm not here to catch a king." I cut in, keeping my eyes on the palace doors drawing closer. "I'm here to make sure he stops treating Omegas like broodmares with polite paperwork." Mother sighs beside him, the sound long-suffering and fond. "You can do both, dear." My siblings, crammed in the second carriage behind us, would gladly volunteer to flirt for power. I am the exception, the scholar who spends nights bent over maps and law scrolls instead of cosmetics. It's why the elders let me lead the delegation's negotiations. It's also why my family thinks I'm wasted potential. A noble Omega with a brain is useful. A noble Omega with a crown would be legendary. The steward meets us at the foot of the marble steps, flanked by guards whose wolves watch me from behind their human eyes. The air smells of polished stone, pine resin, and something harsher beneath it, dominance, tightly leashed. "Lord and Lady Damas," the steward bows. "Welcome. The king awaits you in the Eastern Council Hall." Of course he does. 6 packs are circling each other over trade, territory, and old grudges. The Alpha King doesn't delay when it comes to politics. He delays only when it comes to heirs. The hall is enormous, its arched windows open to let in the fading light. At the far end, beneath an intricate crest of moon and wolf etched into the stone, stands Alpha King Edward. Stories never did him justice. Dark hair falls just past his collar, slightly disordered, as if he's run his hands through it one too many times after a long day of ruling. His shoulders fill the formal black and gold jacket he wears, the embroidery catching the light like molten metal. But it's his eyes that stop me short, storm gray, sharp and distant, with a weariness that says he has seen too much, fought too often, and expects very little from whoever stands in front of him. Except when his gaze lands on me, distant becomes curious. My wolf shifts inside my skin, not with the dizzying lurch of a mate bond, but with a low, alert hum. Not fate, not lightning, just awareness. Heat, slow and deliberate, uncoiling at the base of my spine. I bow with the rest of my family, keeping my eyes lowered just long enough to be polite and no longer. "Your Majesty," Father begins, launching into our prepared opening about trade routes and shared borders. Edward listens, expression unreadable, fingers resting lightly on the back of the chair at his side. Every so often his gaze flickers to me, as if he can feel the way I'm holding my tongue when I want to dissect every outdated clause in the current treaty. When he speaks, his voice is smoother than I expected, deep and quiet. The kind of sound that pulls attention without needing to raise volume. "I've read your proposals," he says. "They bear the seal of your house, Lord Damas, but the hand that wrote them." His eyes lock with mine. "Is not yours." My father's pride bristles, but decorum forces him into a thin smile. "My daughter Tamara led the drafting, Your Majesty. She has a particular interest in structural reforms. Reforms that shave the teeth off the current hierarchy," one of the king's advisors mutters. "Reforms that prevent abuses," I reply, before my father can silence me with a look. "And strengthen the packs long term." Edward's lips curve, Not quite a smile, more like the ghost of one. "Let her speak," he says mildly, when my father shifts his weight. I prefer arguments to sycophancy. The room stills, all attention shifting to me. My heart beats faster, but it's the good kind of racing anticipation, not fear. So, I do what I came here to do. I walk forward, laying out the flaws in the current treaties, how Omegas can be revoked from their territories and traded like assets, how border disputes are settled with blood before mediation, how economic dependence keeps smaller packs permanently submissive. I point to clauses, offer alternatives, outline a framework where strength remains honored, but exploitation is curbed. Edward watches me the entire time. His advisors interrupt, questioning my assumptions. I counter calmly, my tone, respectful but unyielding. When one suggests that Omegas naturally belong under male guardianship for their own safety, my wolf bares her teeth, and I let just enough ice into my voice to make the point without starting a war. So protection, I say, only counts if it depends on control? A low sound comes from the king's direction. Amusement, maybe, or approval. By the time the sun has dipped below the windows, we have agreements on 3 minor points and an argument brewing on the 4th. My family looks simultaneously pleased and anxious. They came hoping to impress the king. They did not expect me to challenge his counsel to their faces. When the formal session ends, Edward dismisses the advisors and invites our family to dine with him that evening. The invitation is delivered with all the neutral grace of a king following protocol, but when his gaze lingers on me, my wolf lifts her head again, ears pricked. In my chamber, my mother hovers while maids lay out gowns. She pushes the deep red one toward me, the one that hugs my waist and bares my shoulders, embroidered with threads that catch the light like fire. "You should make an effort," she says quietly. "He noticed you." Everyone saw it. He noticed my arguments, I reply, though my fingers brush the gown's fabric. "Not my neckline. Men like him notice both," she answers, not unkindly. "And there's no shame in using every advantage." I end up in the red dress. The private dining room is smaller than the hall, lit by clusters of candles that bathe the stone in warm gold. Edward waits at the head of a table laid with roasted meats, fresh bread, and wine dark as ink. Without the full weight of his court, he seems less like a legend, and more like a man carrying too many invisible scars. Again, his eyes find me first. Throughout dinner, my parents and siblings steer the conversation toward trade and alliances, dropping cautious hints about family bonds and the advantages of closer ties. Edward listens, polite, but the only time he truly engages is when I contradict his beta over border patrol strategies. "It's inefficient," I say, leaning forward, no longer caring how the candlelight paints my throat. "You concentrate your warriors along the eastern ridge, but smugglers and raiders with half a brain go around, through neutral zones you don't monitor because they're technically outside your jurisdiction." The beta bristles. "We cannot extend our authority everywhere, Lady Tamara." "You already do," I counter. "You just pretend not to, so you don't have to take responsibility when things go wrong." A dangerous silence falls. Then Edward laughs. It's low, surprised, and real. The sound sends a shiver along my skin, my wolf pressing closer to the surface, curious. "Finally," he says. Someone willing to say it plainly. The conversation shifts. He starts asking me direct questions about my research, about Omega councils I've attended, about the small reforms I've helped pass in neighboring packs. Each time our fingers brush reaching for bread or wine, something flares between us. Not the overwhelming pull described in mate legends, but a steady, growing current. Heat that pools low in my belly. An awareness that makes the room feel smaller, the air thicker. When my father excuses himself and takes my siblings with him under the guise of allowing the king to rest, they leave me behind like an offering. Edward doesn't send me away. "Walk with me," he says instead, pushing back his chair. The corridors are quiet at this hour, the flicker of torches casting moving shadows across the stone. From somewhere distant, a wolf howls lonely, resonant. "You challenged my beta," he says after a while, hands clasped behind his back. "Most people would consider that unwise." "Most people don't invite me to dinner twice," I answer. "You said you preferred arguments to flattery." He glances sideways at me, eyes glinting. "And what do you prefer, Lady Tamara?" "I should say reforms, treaties, autonomy." Instead, my gaze lingers on the line of his throat, the way the torchlight catches in his hair. "Honesty," I say, voice softer than I intend, even when it's inconvenient. We stop at an open balcony, the night air cool against my heated skin. Below, the training grounds are empty, the city beyond the walls a scattering of lights. It's been a long time, he says quietly, since anyone spoke to me without fear of my title. There's loneliness in that admission, buried beneath alpha steel. A man who can command a room with a look, yet stands here now like he expects me to step back, to remember who he is and retreat. I should. Instead, I step closer. Your title doesn't intimidate me, I murmur. Your policies do. His mouth curves again, that almost smile pulling at the corner. You really would rewrite my kingdom from the ground up, wouldn't you? If it meant Omegas weren't traded like livestock? I meet his gaze head on. Yes. Our eyes lock, and something shifts. Not a lightning strike. A tide turning. My wolf stirs, stretching, recognizing something in him she doesn't quite have a name for. His scent, pine, smoke, clean steel, wraps around me, settling under my skin. The air between us hums, charged, intimate. Tamra, he says, my name a rough edge on his tongue. I feel it then. Not fate slamming into place, but possibility. A door opening I have no business stepping through. I step anyway. Later, I will blame the wine, the long journey, the way the world feels suspended up here, like the rules below can't quite reach us. But in that moment, when his hand lifts to brush a curl from my cheek, when his fingers graze my skin and every nerve ending flares awake, logic falls away like a discarded cloak. I reach for him. The first kiss is a question. The second is an answer neither of us will be able to take back. By the time his mouth claims mine fully, by the time my hands are fisted in his jacket and his body presses me gently, inexorably, against the stone, the careful distance I swore to maintain has burned to ash. Heat roars through me, my wolf keening in fierce, bewildered delight as his dominance wraps around us, not crushing but sheltering. There is no bright flash of destiny, no celestial sign, just the slow, devastating realization that I am losing the argument I never meant to start, the one between my principles and my desire. That night, passion overrides logic, and the world, though it doesn't know it yet, begins to change. The first time I vomit, I blame the stew. It's easier than admitting that the smell of broth and onions, something I've eaten since childhood, suddenly turns my stomach so violently I barely make it to the basin. My youngest sister, Livia, hovers in the doorway, eyes wide. Tamara, are you sick? Apparently, I rasp, rinsing my mouth. Tell Mother to burn that stew recipe. But the nausea doesn't leave with the meal. It lingers, curling at the edges of my days, morning, noon, and night, accompanied by a bone-deep fatigue that even strong tea cannot shake. At first, I try to ignore it, burying myself in scrolls and trade reports to avoid the memory of a balcony, a king's mouth on mine, his hands on my hips as the world fell away. Ignoring becomes impossible when the healer presses cool fingers to my pulse, then to my lower belly, and goes very, very still. Again, she whispers, more to herself than to me. She repeats the test's herbs, a copper charm that warms in her hand, the old chant every Omega child is taught to dread and secretly dream of. When she meets my eyes, her own are shining. You're with child, Lady Tamara. For a heartbeat, the world goes silent. Not just with child, with his child. I sit there on the edge of the cot, staring at the woven rug as if it might rearrange itself into a different answer. My wolf is a low, stunned presence in my chest, not unhappy, just startled, like she took a step in the dark and found herself on the edge of a cliff. That's not possible, I say finally, my voice hoarse. He hasn't, no woman, the healer swallows, choosing her words carefully. It has been many years since anyone has carried the king's offspring, yes, but there is no mistake. Your body knows what it holds. When my parents hear, there is no silence. There is sound, explosive, jubilant, relentless. Mother cries first, hands over her mouth, then pulls me into a hug so fierce my ribs protest. Father's composure cracks like thin ice. He laughs, an astonished, broken sound, and grips my shoulders as if I might vanish. Our daughter, he says, eyes bright, carrying the Alpha King's heir. By evening, the entire estate hums like a disturbed hive. Servants whisper in hallways. My siblings orbit me like moons, Livia squealing with every excuse to touch my arm, my older brother pacing and muttering about security, my second sister already planning which seamstress will be entrusted with my important wardrobe. The word heir floats through the house like incense. Heir, heir, Heir. Not child. Not baby. Certainly not mine. I stand at my bedroom window long after everyone else has gone to bed, watching the moon rise over our lands. My palms rest flat on my abdomen, where nothing yet shows, but awareness grows subtle, insistent. My body doesn't feel like a stranger's, exactly, but like a house that has secretly acquired a second heartbeat in the walls. Of course you'd do this backwards, I whisper to myself. Fight for Omega rights for years, then accidentally become the living symbol of everything you argued against. My wolf flicks her tail, unimpressed by my sarcasm. She is not thinking about treaties. She is thinking about strong hands and a low laugh and the way Edward's breath felt against my throat. I send the message to the palace at dawn, before I can talk myself out of it. Formal phrasing, crisp and controlled. The Damas family seeks a private audience with His Majesty regarding a matter of utmost personal significance. His answer arrives 6 hours later, carried by a royal rider whose horse is lathered with sweat. The king is already on his way. When his carriage rolls into our courtyard at sunset, the entire household seems to hold its breath. My parents stand at the front, dressed as if for a coronation. My siblings have been scrubbed and polished, lined up by age like a display of well-bred assets. I feel underdressed in a simple dark green gown, but any more silk and gold would have made me feel like a liar. Then he steps down from the carriage, and the air shifts. Edward looks different outside his palace, less adorned, more dangerous. He wears dark riding leathers instead of formal embroidery, his hair wind-tossed, jaw shadowed as if he didn't bother with a blade this morning. His gaze sweeps the courtyard, assessing, then locks onto me. The distance between us crackles. He moves through my family's bows and curtsies with polite nods, but I can feel it. His focus is a narrow beam, fixed on the Omega who should, by all reasonable accounts, not be pregnant with his child. Tamara, he says when he reaches me. My name in his voice does something unforgivable to my pulse. Your Majesty, I reply, inclining my head. Come, my father says, almost giddy. We've prepared a private sitting room. Later, Edward cuts in, still not looking away from me. I'd like to speak with Lady Tamara first. He says it with kingly calm, but there's an edge beneath it, as if he's holding something tightly leashed. Shock, yes. Something like anger at fate's cruelty, perhaps. And under that something rawer. Fear. I lead him to the small garden off my study, where old stone benches sit beneath climbing roses. It's quieter here. Less expectation, more truth. For a moment, we simply stand facing each other, the scent of earth and petals wrapping around the sharper notes of leather and pine that cling to him. Is it true? He asks. He doesn't bother with titles, just that. The question hanging between us like a blade. I could flinch. Instead, I meet his eyes and nod once. Yes. He exhales, a sound that's almost a laugh but breaks halfway through. He scrubs a hand over his face, then paces a few steps away before turning back. The healers ran every test twice, I say. Then a third time for their own curiosity. His gaze drops, just briefly, to my still flat abdomen. Something fierce flashes there, possessive, protective, and bewildered. His wolf stirs behind his pupils, the gray darkening, widening, then retreating. I don't understand, he admits. Decades of nothing, dozens of attempts. A flex of his jaw at the word. And then one night with the woman who spent half the evening arguing against my traditions, and suddenly the impossible, I say quietly. His eyes flick up to mine. For a moment, neither of us smiles. Then his hand lifts, hesitates in the air between us. May I? The question shouldn't make my throat tight, but it does. I nod, and he steps closer, the warmth of his body brushing my skin even before his palm touches my lower stomach. The instant he makes contact, something happens. Heat floods outward from his hand, not sharp, but deep. A slow, rolling warmth that spreads through my abdomen, my chest, my limbs. My wolf jerks awake, ears pinned back in startled awe. The air thickens, humming, like the moment before a storm breaks. Edward inhales sharply. Do you feel that? I whisper. His fingers twitch against me. His wolf surges, pushing at his gaze until I can almost see fur in the gray. For one dizzy second, I think he might drop to his knees, not to me, but to whatever stirs between us. There's something different about you, he murmurs, voice low, almost reverent. I felt it that night. I thought it was chemistry, stupidity, a rough huff of breath. But this, the warmth pulses again, a gentle thrum that answers the rhythm of his touch. Not painful, not frightening, just other, ancient. I force myself to step back before I sway into him. That's new, I say, wrapping my arms around myself. So if you have theories, I'd love to hear them before the healers start calling me a miracle and my family starts calling me a ladder. The corner of his mouth lifts, faint and strained. Your family is already plotting coronation colors, I imagine. You have no idea. I glance toward the house, where shadows move behind the curtains. They want me at the palace before my next cycle. Secure your place, my mother says. The kingdom will expect their future Luna to be visible, my father adds, as if my body is a treaty they just signed on my behalf. And what do you want? He asks. The question lands like a challenge. I look back at him, the haunted king, the kingdom calls barren, the man who laughed when I called his policies inefficient, the alpha whose touch just woke something I don't have a name for. I want, I say slowly, to not become a symbol before I've decided who I am outside of it. His brows draw together. You don't wish to come to the palace? I'll come, I answer. For the pregnancy, for the healers, for whatever this is. I gesture vaguely between us, but I won't promise you a future I haven't chosen. I won't sign away my autonomy because my womb did something dramatic. A lesser man might bristle. A lesser king might remind me of duty, tradition, the weight of expectation pressing on both our shoulders. Edward is silent for a long moment, studying me like I am both puzzle and lifeline. Everyone, he says finally, will expect you to be Luna. I know. And if I told you I wanted you there not because of obligation, but because you are the first person in years who makes me feel like more than a title. His confession hangs between us, raw and unguarded. My heart stutters. The warmth from earlier still lingers under my skin, as if his touch branded me not with ownership, but with some shared, inexplicable energy. Then I'd say, I reply softly, let me get through growing a tiny impossibility inside me before we plan the rest of my life. His laugh is quieter this time, but real. The lines of tension around his mouth ease. Stay here for now, he says. I'll arrange for my healers to visit. When you're ready, you come to the palace as my guest, not my prisoner. Guests can leave, I remind him. His gaze hardens, but not unkindly. So can queens, he says, if they choose to. We stand there in the fading light, two people bound together by a choice that felt like a mistake and now overshadows every decision we make. The impossible beats softly between us, unseen but undeniable. I don't take his hand again, but when he leaves, long after my family has toasted themselves into a stupor, the echo of his touch still burns against my skin, and the warmth in my belly pulses once, twice in quiet answer. Impossible. And just beginning. The palace changes around me before my body ever shows it. At first, it's small things. Healers who used to breeze into my rooms with efficient smiles now linger at the threshold, as if crossing onto my carpets requires courage. Their hands are gentle but hesitant, their brows pinched when they press cool palms to my stomach and close their eyes. The heartbeat is strong, one murmurs. The energy is unusual, another adds, voice barely above a breath. They never say wrong. They say words like remarkable and unprecedented and fascinating, the way scholars speak about storms they're watching from a safe distance. Only this storm is under my skin. By the end of the second month at the palace, my belly has begun to curve, a subtle swell that tightens my gowns and makes my sisters squeal in their letters. I feel different, too warmer, like there's a small sun buried low inside me. Sometimes it's comforting, a soft glow. Sometimes it flares without warning, a hot, humming pulse that makes my wolf sit up and pant. The first time Edward truly feels it, we're not alone. We're in his council chamber, surrounded by maps and advisors, arguing over patrol routes again. I'm winning. His beta hates that. Edward is leaning over the table beside me, one hand braced on the wood, the other resting absently against my side in a proprietary, absent-minded way that still sends a thrill through me. A flare rises, sudden and fierce. Heat floods outward from my core, not painful, but dense, a wave that rolls through muscle and bone. Edward's hand slides instinctively down to my stomach, trying to soothe. The moment his palm settles over the curve, his body jolts. He inhales sharply, muscles locking, eyes going wide. The chair behind him skids a fraction as his stance shifts. For a heartbeat, I feel it too, like his touch completes a circuit. Energy surges up through his arm, across his chest, and back into me, looping, building. Your Majesty? His beta asks, frowning. Edward snatches his hand back as if burned. "I'm fine," he says, voice a little rough. His gaze darts to my face, questions blazing there. "Are you? Did you feel that? What was that?" I force my breathing to slow, my fingers curling around the edge of the table until the wood bites my skin. "I need air," I say lightly. "The maps are suffocating." He dismisses the council without further explanation. No one argues. They're too busy pretending they didn't see their king flinch from a pregnant Omega like she was a live wire. The moment the doors close, he turns to me. "What was that?" he demands, low and urgent. "You tell me," I counter, equally shaken. "You're the one who nearly leaped out of your skin." He searches my face, then, without asking this time, presses his hand gently to my belly again. The surge returns, but controlled, slower. It's a steady, vibrant thrum that pushes against his palm like a second heartbeat made of warmth and static. My wolf presses forward, ears flattened in wary respect. Edward's eyes darken, his wolf crowding the surface. "Spirits," he whispers. "It's like touching pure alpha essence." "And that means what, exactly?" I ask, even as my body leans unconsciously into his touch. "It means," he says, fingers splaying, "that whatever is inside you is more than blood and bone." Our attraction sharpens like a blade. It was always there, simmering beneath every argument, every shared look across a crowded hall. But now it's threaded with something new, an awareness that our bodies, when they come together, don't just spark, they awaken. Every time he kisses me, the energy stirs. In the library, when his mouth claims mine between stacks of dusty law texts, the chandeliers above us tremble. In the shadowed alcove behind the throne room, when his hands slide under my bodice and his lips trace the curve of my throat, the torches flare, their flames elongating, guttering, then steadying as if they, too, are fighting for control. "Tamra," he groans once, breaking away, forehead pressed to mine. "If the palace burns down, your father will kill me." "Then stop kissing me in public corridors," I manage, breathless. He doesn't. "It's worse better when we're alone." One night, the moon is high and full, casting pale light through the windows of his private chambers. My back is against his sheets, the dark fabric cool against my overheated skin. His hands are reverent, tracing the new curve of my belly, his mouth worshipping every inch as if it's sacred. "Tell me if it's too much," he murmurs. "I'll tell you if it's not enough," I whisper back. When he slides into me, carefully, slowly, the world narrows to his body and mine, and the steady, solid weight of him. Our movements are unhurried, almost ceremonial, as if we both understand that this is no longer just sex, no longer just stolen indulgence. It's an invocation. The warmth inside me swells with each thrust, rolling like a tide. I can feel it waking, stretching, tasting the edges of the vessel containing it. My skin prickles, my vision blurs. Edward's eyes hold mine, gray, gone, almost black. His wolf not just present, but kneeling at something unseen. "Do you feel it?" I gasp. "Yes," he says, voice hoarse. "Spirits, yes." The pulse becomes a rhythm, syncing with our bodies. With every glide of his hips, the heat climbs, traveling up my spine, spreading through my veins until my fingertips tingle. I arch, clutching at his shoulders, nails digging into his back. And then something vast stirs. Not the small, fluttering movement I've come to associate with the baby. This is older, deeper. A slow, immense turning, like a great beast shifting in sleep. For a second, it feels as though the bones of the world themselves are adjusting under us. Light blooms at the edges of my vision. Edward chokes on a breath, his movements faltering. "Tamara." I look down at where our bodies join and see it. My skin, faintly luminescent, as if moonlight has seeped beneath the surface. Not bright enough to illuminate the room, but enough to halo us in a soft, unearthly glow. "By the ancestors," he breathes, staring. Awe, desire, and fear war in his expression. His hips snap forward once more, helpless, and pleasure tears through me, riding the crest of that power. When release hits, it's not just mine. The energy erupts, pouring out in a wave that races across my skin and into him. He shudders, groaning my name like a prayer, his body convulsing as if the force of it is too much to hold. For a heartbeat, all sense of separateness vanishes. There is no king, no Omega, no palace, only the blinding, terrifying intimacy of being completely open. Then it recedes, like a tide drawing back. We collapse together, panting. The glow fades from my skin, leaving only a faint warmth, a satisfied weight in my womb, and the rapid pounding of my heart. "You're not just carrying my child," he whispers against my neck, voice raw. "You're carrying something ancient. I should be afraid." Maybe I am, beneath the haze of pleasure. But there is also a strange, quiet rightness, as if some dormant part of me had been waiting years for this awakening and is finally, dangerously, awake. The palace feels it too. In the days that follow, the way people look at me changes. Wolves who cross my path lower their eyes automatically, even when their human faces tilt up in polite greeting. Guards straighten when I walk by, not just out of respect for their king's companion, but out of instinct. Once, in the courtyard, a young warrior's wolf forces a whine from his throat when I pass. He clamps his jaw shut, mortified, but I see the way his shoulders hunch, the way his gaze flicks to my abdomen with something like reverence. Even Edward's beta keeps his distance now. He still argues with me in council meetings, but he no longer stands close enough to touch. When his hand accidentally brushes mine over a map, he flinches as if shocked. "Apologies, my lady," he mutters. My wolf smirks. At night, when the palace quiets and Edward finally sleeps, I light a candle in the small sitting room attached to my chambers and pull old histories from the shelves. The royal library is generous, but it's the dusty, half-forgotten scrolls that call to me, the ones tucked behind treaties and war records, filled with stories that sound more like myths than fact. I read about the first packs, the mothers who walked with wolves before there were thrones, the rituals long banned as superstition. One word appears again and again, in different dialects, with the same meaning: vessel. Women who carried not just children, but raw ancestral force, living conduits for power older than crowns. Rare, dangerous, revered and feared in equal measure. My fingers tighten around the parchment. "That's not me," I tell the empty room, as if saying it aloud could make it true. "I'm just pregnant, that's all." The candle flame flickers, bending toward my belly as though drawn. The warmth inside me hums in answer, a quiet, undeniable yes. In the corridor outside, somewhere far below, a lone wolf howls a long, shivering note that trembles through stone and bone, as if the whole palace is holding its breath, waiting to see what, exactly, I am becoming. By the time my family starts arriving in shifts, the palace feels smaller than it did when I first stepped into it. They come with gifts and smiles and carefully rehearsed concern, but beneath it all pulses the same message, wrapped in silk. Choose now. Choose them. Choose power. Mother is the first. She sweeps into my sitting room with the confidence of a woman who has birthed 5 children and negotiated 3 land disputes without ever raising her voice. "You look pale," she says, kissing my cheek, then immediately pressing a hand to my belly, as if she owns the right to feel what moves there. "But radiant, that's good. Heirs are supposed to make their mothers glow. I feel more like a lantern someone forgot to switch off," I mutter. She ignores that, sinking gracefully into the sofa opposite me. "Tamara, we need to talk about formalization." I knew it was coming. Still, my shoulders tense. "Mother, you're carrying the heir," she says, cutting neatly through my protest. "The only heir this kingdom has seen in decades. Do you understand what that means?" "It means I throw up every morning and can't see my feet anymore," I answer. "Beyond that, I'm aware there are expectations." "Expectations?" Her eyes flash. "Child, another woman could walk into this palace tomorrow, spread her legs, and hand him another heir. You secure your place before that happens." The words land like slaps. My wolf bristles. "Is that all you see when you look at me now?" I ask quietly. "A womb with a deadline?" Her expression softens, but only slightly. "I see my daughter standing in the center of history. You fought so hard for a voice, for Omegas to be taken seriously. As Luna, you could rewrite everything you've ever complained about. As Luna," I say, "I could also become a symbol they trot out when convenient and silence when I say something they don't like." "Only if you let them," she replies briskly. "And you are not the type to be silenced." She leaves me with a stack of letters from extended relatives and a list of names for potential Luna ladies in waiting, for when you finally come to your senses. The room feels crowded long after she's gone. My siblings are worse. They arrive 2 days later in a whirlwind of laughter and perfume, filling my chambers with noise and familiarity that makes my chest ache. Livia flings herself onto my bed, hands immediately reaching for my belly. "Do you think he can hear me?" she asks, pressing her ear to my skin. Hello, tiny future tyrant. Your aunt insists you'll love her best. My brother leans against the window, eyeing the guards in the courtyard below. You should ask for your own personal battalion when you're Luna, he says casually. Not just for security, but leverage. Whoever controls your detail, controls the whispers. My other sister unfurls a roll of parchment covered in neat handwriting. I've drafted some possible initiatives you could propose once you're formally introduced, she announces. Reforms always go down easier when presented as, for the good of the royal pup. People love a sentimental hook. Everyone has plans for my life, I say, rubbing my temples. It's amazing any of you remember I'm the one actually living it. They exchange glances. Tam, my brother says gentler, we're not trying to trap you. This is an opportunity we never thought we'd have. You never thought you'd have. I still don't know if I want it, I snap. Does that matter to anyone but me? Silence answers. It's almost a relief when Edward pulls me out of the chaos under the excuse of a walk in the gardens. We stroll along the gravel paths, flanked by rose bushes and moonflowers that only open at night. Guards trail at a discreet distance, but the space between us feels oddly crowded with questions, with tension, with everything we haven't said. Your mother cornered my steward this morning about scheduling a Luna coronation, he says dryly. Heat crawls up my neck. I'm going to kill her. Please don't. I've grown strangely fond of her threats. I huff a laugh, then fall quiet. The gravel crunches under our boots, the scent of flowers layered over the ever-present tang of his dominance. My hand drifts, by habit now, to the side of my belly that's become the baby's favorite kicking ground. Edward notices. What do you want, Tamara? He asks finally. Not your family, not my counsel. You. It's a simple question. It feels like a cliff edge. I say slowly, this child to be safe. I want Omegas to stop being treated like breeding contracts. I want to use every bit of leverage this situation gives me without waking up one day and realizing I've become a symbol instead of a person. His jaw flexes. And being Luna automatically makes you a symbol. It makes me property, I say quietly. Unless everyone involved works very hard to make it something else. We stop under an archway, dripping with ivy. He turns to face me, gray eyes storm bright. I won't chain you, he says. I won't ask for vows you don't give freely. But the kingdom needs stability. They will push for a title, for a ceremony, for us. His hand lifts, hovers near my cheek, then drops. I want you here because you choose me, not because your family bullied you into a crown. And if I never choose it, I ask. If I stay as I am, mother of your heir, partner in policy, but not Luna? He considers that, shoulders heavy with weights I can't see. Then we weather the whispers, he says, together. It should comfort me. It almost does, but the power inside me has no patience for politics. It grows louder every day. Now, when Edward brushes a hand along my spine in passing, the candles in the hall flare high, their flames stretching like they're reaching for us. When he kisses me in my sitting room, the windows rattle in their frames, a faint, shuddering vibration like distant thunder. His wolf reacts the most. Once, in the library, he cages me against a shelf, mouth hot on mine. The moment his palm curves over my stomach, a low, involuntary whimper tears from his throat, not from the man, but from the beast. His eyes flash, his body bowing instinctively, as if some ancient part of him wants to prostrate itself before what I carry. Edward, I breathe, cupping his face. Look at me. He drags his gaze up, fighting for control. Desire burns there, yes, but threaded through with something like reverence, fear, worship. This is getting worse, he rasps. Or better. I can't decide. Both, I say. Definitely both. We try to be cautious. We fail. The breaking point comes one stormy evening, rain hammering the windows while the palace hunkers down around us. We're in his chambers, the fire throwing restless shadows across the walls. I'm pacing, restless, skin buzzing, that inner heat coiling tight and demanding release. I feel like I'm going to crawl out of my own body, I admit, pressing a hand to my lower back. If one more healer tells me to rest and breathe, I might set them on fire with my mind. I'd pay to see that, he says, voice rough. He's been pacing too, tension coiled in his shoulders, shirt half unbuttoned as if even fabric feels like too much restraint. When I turn, our eyes lock, and the air between us snaps. We cross the distance at the same time. The kiss is not careful. It's hungry, messy with need. His hands frame my face, then slide down, gripping my hips as if he can anchor us both. I clutch at his shoulders, dragging him closer, my body already arching, begging for more. Tamara, he warns against my mouth. The last time, I know, I pant. I don't care. We stumble backward, hit the side of the bed. He lowers me onto it with surprising gentleness for a man shaking apart at the seams. His mouth trails down my throat, across my collarbone, reverent and desperate all at once. When he enters me, the world narrows again. The power responds immediately, rising like a tide, drawn to the friction, to the intimacy. Each movement feeds it, and it feeds us in return, amplifying pleasure until it's almost unbearable. Slow, he grits out. We have to. I can't, I gasp. Edward, I can't. The energy crests. For one terrible, glorious second, I lose the last thread of control. It explodes outward. The blast is silent but immense raw force bursting from my core in a shockwave that hits everything around us. The fire roars high, then extinguishes completely, plunging the room into darkness. The bed shudders. The windows slam open despite the storm, rain and wind crashing in. Edward is thrown back as if struck. He sails off the mattress, hits the far wall with a heavy thud, and crumples to the floor. My scream catches in my throat, strangled by shock. The power drains as quickly as it rose, leaving me shaking, breathless, the room crackling with fading echoes. Edward! I scramble to my knees, panic slicing through the remnants of pleasure. Spirits, are you... A groan answers me. He rolls onto his back, wincing, one hand over his ribs. Remind me, he mutters, voice strained, to never anger you in a room full of sharp objects. Tears prick, my eyes relief, terror, fury all tangled. This isn't funny. His gaze finds mine in the dim light. Even bruised and winded, he manages a crooked smile. It's a little funny. I crawl toward him, every muscle trembling. You could have been hurt. I'm fine. He grips my wrist, thumb stroking my pulse. His expression sobers. You, on the other hand, I lost control, I whisper. I didn't mean to, it was just too much, he finishes softly. We sit there on the cold floor, rain spattering through the open windows, our bodies still humming with the aftermath. I press my palm to my belly. The child moves, a reassuring kick. The power hums, low and satisfied, like a beast that just stretched its limbs for the first time in centuries. We can't keep doing this, I say, voice raw. Not like this. What if next time it's not just windows that break? What if it's you? What if it's me? He doesn't argue. His fingers tighten around mine, knuckles white. And yet, he says quietly, tell me you don't already want to touch me again. The worst part is, he's right. Even shaken, even terrified, my body still leans toward him, drawn by that same impossible gravity. My wolf presses against my skin, not in blind lust, but in recognition. Sacred, forbidden, ours. I close my eyes. The pull between us is going to get us both killed, I murmur. Or remade, he replies. His thumb traces circles on the inside of my wrist, steady and grounding. While the storm rages outside and the ancient thing inside me purrs, patient and hungry, waiting for the next time we're foolish enough to tempt it. The historian smells like dust and old ink, and somehow that makes me trust him more. He shuffles into my sitting room, leaning on a carved cane, eyes cloudy but sharp, silver hair braided down his back in the old style. Edward insisted on being present. He stands behind my chair like a dark, silent wall, one hand resting on the backrest, close enough that the warmth of him skims my neck. Lady Tamra, the historian says, bowing. Your condition has stirred. Memories. That's one word for it, I answer. The healers prefer anomaly. A dry smile tugs at his mouth. They are creatures of charts and pulses. I am a creature of stories. Sometimes, stories explain what numbers cannot. He lays a leather-bound book on the low table between us. The cover is cracked, the edges darkened by age and too many hands. This is not in the public archives, he continues. These histories were copied privately, passed down through certain bloodlines. Your mother's grandmother requested this copy when she married into the Damas line. I blink. My family knew about this? They knew the legend, he corrects. Not that it would ever matter. Until now. Edward's fingers flex on the chair behind me. Speak plainly, he says, voice low. We don't have patience for riddles. The historian opens the book. On the first page, ink faded to brown, is an illustration. Women standing in a circle beneath a full moon, wolves ranged around them in poses of worship, not dominance. In the center, one woman glows brighter than the rest, light pouring from her belly like liquid silver. Before there were kings, the old man says, there were mothers. Before packs built palaces, they lived by rivers and under trees, guided by those who could touch the raw essence of what we are. We called them vessels, living conduits. My mouth dries. I can feel the power inside me listening, stretching like a cat to the sound of its own name. I've read references, I say. Footnotes, half a stanza in a song. I thought they were myths. Most people do, he replies. It is easier to worship crowns than wombs. Crowns are visible, wombs are messy. Edward's hand tightens again. What are you saying she is? The historian looks directly at me, and for the first time, his gaze is not kindly. It is reverent, cautious. A bloodline vessel, he says. Your mother's line traces back to the river clans, the first pack mothers. The gift curse, blessing, call it what you will, has lain dormant for generations. Until a compatible spark woke it. His eyes shift to Edward. Your blood, your majesty. Old, potent. The union of your line and hers has not merely created an heir, it has awakened what slept. I wrap my arms around my stomach, as if I can shield the child and whatever else from his words. So the baby is undeniably yours, he says firmly, in every way that matters to succession. But the force moving through Lady Tamara is not the child. It is riding with it, twining around it. Like a parasite, Edward growls. Like a river around a stone, the historian corrects. Shaping it, being shaped by it. If guided, it could steady what has been fractured between packs for years. There are stories of vessels calming wars with a single howl, or restoring feral wolves who had gone too deep into bloodlust. He pauses. If uncontrolled, it could also shatter minds, drive packs mad, tear the boundary between man and beast until neither survives. The room seems to tilt. I focus on my breathing, on the familiar weight in my abdomen. The baby shifts. A small, stubborn kick. The power hums a low, warning growl. So I'm either salvation or catastrophe, I say, comforting. Edward moves then, coming around the chair to stand beside me. His hand finds my shoulder, heavy and steady. She is not a tool, he says, steel in his tone. And she is not a prophecy. She is exactly what vessels always were, the historian interrupts gently. Women forced to navigate power no one else understands. His gaze softens again. The difference this time is that she does not stand alone. His eyes flick between us, seeing more than I'd like. I will teach you what I can, he tells me. Meditations, old rituals to channel excess. But the bond you share, he nods at Edward, that will matter most. Alpha force calls to vessel force, balances it, or inflames it. Comforting, I repeat. He leaves us with the book and a list of instructions. Breathing patterns, moon phases to watch, herbs to avoid. The door closes behind him with a soft click. Silence rushes in. Edward moves first. He paces to the fireplace, then back, jaw clenched. The protective aura around him, always strong, has edged into suffocating. We need to restrict access to you, he says. No more open court appearances. Guards doubled. Anyone who wants an audience goes through me. I bristle. You're already checking every servant who comes near my rooms. Now I'll check their grandparents too, he snaps. Tamara, this is not a game. If the wrong person realizes what you are, what I am, I cut in, is pregnant, not a weapon, not a relic to lock in a vault. His eyes flash. You heard him. You could stabilize us or destroy us. There are alphas who would kill you out of fear, others who would try to use you. I won't let either happen, and I won't live the rest of this pregnancy as a prisoner. I fire back. I fought my whole life for Omega autonomy. I will not trade my freedom now because my magic makes you nervous. It doesn't make me nervous, he says, too quickly. Liar, I say softly. We stare at each other, the gulf between our needs widening into a chasm. This isn't only about you, he says, voice low. It's about the child, our child. If something happened because I didn't do enough, if something happened because you did too much, I counter. Because you wrapped me so tightly in your protection that I couldn't breathe? Safety isn't safety if it feels like a cage, Edward. He flinches. For a moment, I see past the king to the man, the boy, even who grew up with a duty welded to his bones, taught that love and possession are the same thing if you're not careful. I won't be locked away like some fragile relic, I say, gentler but no less firm. If I'm a vessel, then I need to learn how to carry this power, not pretend it isn't there. His shoulders tense, then sag. I'm trying to keep you alive, he whispers. And I'm trying to stay myself, I answer. We both want the same thing. We just disagree on the method. The argument burns through us, leaving ash and jagged edges. We don't touch for the rest of the day. At dinner, we speak only of policy, our words sharp and precise, our gazes carefully not meeting. The distance hurts more than any flare of power. That night, I lie awake in my chamber, the book of vessels open beside me. My skin buzzes with trapped energy, the baby kicking restlessly as if annoyed by my mood. I breathe, counting, following the historian's instructions, but the force inside me prowls, impatient. A soft knock at the door. Tamra, Edward's voice muffled. May I come in? I could say no. I should, according to every rational argument we had earlier. Enter, I say instead. He steps in, hair damp from a recent wash, shirt loose at the collar. He looks tired, older, yet the moment our eyes meet, the familiar jolt passes between us. I don't want to fight, he says quietly. Then don't tell me where I can and can't breathe, I reply, but there's no heat behind it. He crosses the room slowly, as if approaching a wild animal. Perhaps he is. I'll add more guards, he says, but I won't bar your doors, not unless there's a direct threat. He pauses. It's the best compromise I can offer right now. It's more than I expected, less than I want, exactly what we can manage. Fine, I say, on one condition. His brows lift. Name it. Trust that I know my limits. If I say I need space, you give it. If I say I can handle a situation, you listen before you override me. His jaw works, but he nods. Agreed. The air between us shifts. Apology hangs there, unspoken, tangled with hunger and fear and something softer that scares me more than both. He moves closer. I don't step back. His hand lifts, hesitates, then settles careful, questioning on my belly. The power responds immediately, surging toward his touch like a tide to the moon. It should frighten me. Instead, it feels eager, recognizing him, recognizing us. His wolf rises fast, pupils blown wide. But this time, instead of bowing beneath the force, he holds steady, shoulders squared, dominance radiating in a steady, grounding wave. Easy, he murmurs, and I realize he's speaking to the power as much as to me. The energy, impossibly, listens. It hums, strong but contained, wrapping around his hand like a warm, invisible current. Indignant thump under his palm. We both laugh, the tension cracking. Clearly not impressed by our diplomacy, I say. Clearly takes after you, he replies. When he kisses me, it's different. Not less intense, never that, but threaded with carefulness, with a kind of reverence that has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with choice. His mouth moves over mine in slow, coaxing strokes, asking instead of taking, and my body answers willingly, arching into him, power purring instead of snarling. We move to the bed like that, unhurried. Each touch is deliberate. His lips on my throat, my hands in his hair, his fingers tracing the stretched skin of my abdomen while he whispers nonsense promises, apologies, awe. Tell me if it's too much, he says again. I will. I vow. When our bodies join, the energy rises, but not as a wave intent on destruction. It rises like a song, loud, wild, but with a melody we both recognize. His alpha force meets it head-on, not trying to crush it, not yielding entirely, but dancing with it, shaping it. The historian was right. He balances me. I anchor him. Pleasure builds, bright and terrifying. My skin warms, a faint glow blooming just beneath the surface, but this time it doesn't explode outward. It pools, contained, a star held carefully in the hollow of my body. His forehead presses to mine, breath ragged. Tamra, he groans. Look at me. I do. In his eyes I see everything we are. Two stubborn creatures bound not by destiny's lightning strike, but by a series of reckless, deliberate yeses. To each other, to this child, to the terrifying sacred thing we're building in the space between fear and desire. When release comes, it feels less like an eruption and more like a surrender, a yielding not to fate, but to trust. After, he stays inside me, one hand still splayed over our child, the other tangled with mine. The power hums, low and content, like a storm that is chosen, just for tonight, not to break. You're not a relic, he murmurs into my hair. You're a revolution. And you, I say, eyes closing, are insufferably dramatic. His chuckle rumbles through my bones. Bound by danger, held by choice. For the first time since the power woke, I fall asleep without fear. By the time my family decides to save me, I can barely see my toes. They arrive without warning. Mother, father, my siblings, 2 aunts for good measure, pouring into my sitting room like a delegation invading enemy territory. The guards let them pass because they're family. They shouldn't have. My mother doesn't sit. She stands in front of me, hands folded so tightly I can see the tension in her knuckles. This can't wait any longer, she says. You need to formalize. I rub a slow circle over the taut curve of my stomach, where the baby is wedged firmly under my ribs. Formalize what, exactly? My indigestion? Your status, my father answers. Your position. Tamara, the child could come any week now. The kingdom needs to know you are there, Luna. I laugh, short and sharp. The kingdom needs to know their heir will arrive with all his limbs and hopefully his mother's patience. Everything else can wait. It can't, Mother insists. Edward's council is restless. Other packs are watching. If you don't claim this, another woman will. Maybe not now, but later, and she'll have authority you surrendered. Livia sits on the arm of my chair, fingers lacing with mine. We're scared for you, she says softly. That you'll give everything and end up with nothing that's truly yours. The irony is almost painful. What you're asking me to sign, I say carefully, isn't just a document, it's a life. Once I accept that title, I don't get to put it down. My brother spreads his hands. You already live here. You already advise him. This just makes it official and gives you protection when he eventually has to choose a Luna. Protection? I repeat. Or chains with prettier names? Father sighs. You always were dramatic. And you, I counter, always were comfortable with bargains other people had to live inside. The baby kicks, hard. The power inside me stirs at the spike of emotion, testing the edges of my control. The lamps flicker. Mother's gaze darts to the trembling light, then back to me. For the first time, fear edges her expression. Tamra, she whispers, if you won't do it for yourself, do it for him, for the child. A Luna's son is safer than a complications. There it is. The word they won't say, mistress. My wolf bares her teeth. This intervention is over, I say, struggling to my feet. I love you, all of you. But I am not signing away my choices because you're afraid of a future that hasn't happened yet. Tam. Out, I say. More power than voice. The air thickens. Their wolves feel it. My aunts pale. My siblings shift uneasily. Only my parents hold their ground, but even they falter when the flames lift higher in the lamps, responding to my frayed restraint. We're only trying to help, Mother says. Then trust me, I answer. Even if you don't understand me, they leave in a storm of rustling fabric and wounded silence. The door clicks shut, and the room exhales. I don't, because I know what waits on the other side of this conversation, the council. By evening, Edward is tight-jawed and colder than I've seen him in months. We stand side by side in the war room while his advisors circle, cloaking their demands in concern. The nobles are restless, Your Majesty, one says. They need reassurance that succession is secure. It is secure, Edward replies. My heir is healthy. Tamara is under my protection. Protection. Never just that, though. Possession, in their eyes. The mother of the heir must be Luna, another counselor insists. Anything less invites challenge, whispers, attempts to delegitimize the child. A third leans forward, eyes sharp. With all due respect, sire, she already functions as your consort. Formalizing would change nothing in practice, only perception. Nothing in practice except my freedom. Edward's hand finds the small of my back, steadying me. It changes everything, he says quietly. And it will be done when and if Tamra chooses it. A murmur of disapproval ripples through the room. Someone says dangerous. Someone else says irresponsible. I hear vessel under their breath, like a curse. By the time the council disperses, tension coils tightly between my shoulders. I can feel Edward watching me, measuring the crack in my composure. Don't start, I say, turning away. I've had a full day of people telling me what's best for me. I wasn't going to tell you, he answers. I was going to ask. That's worse. His chambers are quieter than mine, the fire banked low. He closes the door behind us, the click sounding final. For a moment, neither of us speaks. The space between us is thick with everything unsaid. Fear, frustration, the memory of my family's pleading faces and his counsel's thinly veiled threats. You heard them, I say finally. You heard my parents. This would be easier for everyone if I just said yes. Everyone but you, he counters. Maybe I'm being selfish. Good, he snaps. You should be. No one else is being selfish on your behalf. I sink onto the edge of his bed, one hand at the small of my back. The entire kingdom is pressing on me from all sides, Edward. I'm tired. I'm scared. And I'm trying not to make a decision I'll resent for the rest of my life. He comes to stand in front of me, taking my chin gently, tilting my face up. His expression is raw, stripped. What if you resent me, he asks, for not being enough to make this worth it? My breath catches. That's not, isn't it? His thumb strokes my jaw, careful, trembling. If there were no crown, no council, no Luna title, if it were just me, a stubborn alpha with too many responsibilities, and a ruined balcony railing, would you still hesitate? The answer slams into me with humiliating clarity. Yes, I admit. Because I've spent my entire life watching women disappear into men's roles. Even good men. Especially good men. I'm terrified of loving you so much I let myself vanish. His eyes close briefly, like the words physically hurt. When he opens them, something has shifted. The air thickens, not with power this time, but with emotion. Heavy, inevitable. I love you, he says. The room goes very still. It's not grand or poetic. It's hoarse and quiet, dragged from a man who has held himself together for so long that the act of unraveling looks almost painful. He lets his hand fall, stepping back as if giving me room to run. Not because of the child, he continues. Not because of what you are, or what you can do for this kingdom. Spirits. Tamra, if you had walked out of my palace after that first night and never sent word again, I would have spent the rest of my life wondering when exactly I lost the chance to deserve you. Heat stings my eyes. The power inside me reacts, surging eagerly to the intensity, pressing against my ribs. Don't, I whisper. Don't say that if you don't. I love you, he repeats, firmer. I love the way you challenge me in council and in bed. I love your temper, your mind, the way you talk to my guards like they're people, not furniture. I love that you're stubborn enough to argue with me when everyone else bows. I love you, Tamara, and I need to know. His voice cracks. Do you want this life with me, or am I just another form of cage? The question tears something open inside me. All the fear, all the stubbornness, all the carefully maintained distance crumble under the weight of truth I've been too cowardly to name. I'm afraid, I say. Not of you. Of losing myself. I know, he says. I'm angry, I add. That the moment I love someone, the world demands I prove it by giving up pieces of myself. I know, he says again, softer. And the words choke in my throat, then break free on a rush of breath. I love you. Spirits help me. I love you so much it makes me stupid. The power surges. Heat flares under my skin, sudden and fierce, racing along nerves, licking at bone. The lamps flare, bright as stars. The fire leaps high, then gutters low, as if stunned. The baby kicks hard enough to make me gasp. Edward's wolf slams against his skin, eyes going wide, fangs flashing briefly. The force between us swells like a storm about to break. I can't. I clutch at my chest, every heartbeat a drum. It's too much. He doesn't hesitate. He crosses the distance in 2 strides, dropping to his knees in front of me, hands bracketing my face. Look at me, he commands. Alpha layered over man. I do. His gaze locks mine, steady and fierce. Breathe with me, he says. Match me. He inhales, slow and deep. I follow. The power snarls, resisting, wanting release, wanting to fling itself outward on the confession hanging between us. But his presence pushes back, not crushing, but containing, guiding. Again, he murmurs. We breathe together, in, out. His thumbs stroke slow circles along my jaw. His wolf lowers its head, not in submission, but in solidarity. The energy fights, then yields. It settles, reluctantly, like a storm curling back into the horizon instead of tearing the sky open. The lamps dim to normal, the fire steadies, the baby gives a final, offended jab and then quiets. Tears spill over, hot and helpless. "You ground me," I whisper, "and that terrifies me too." "I don't want to be your anchor," he says. "I want to be the man holding the rope while you walk the edge of the world, knowing you can come back whenever you choose." "That's worse," I say, choking out a laugh. "Now you're making it sound romantic." His mouth curves, but his eyes stay serious. "We do this together," he says. "Your terms, your choice. If you decide you never want the title, I will stand beside you and face down every alpha who questions it. If you decide you want it, we shape it into something that doesn't erase you. And if I can't decide before the baby comes," I ask, "then we let the kingdom sit in uncertainty a little longer," he replies. "They've survived worse." I search his face, looking for cracks, for resentment, for hidden ultimatums. I find only stubborn resolve, and a love that feels like standing in the center of my own power and realizing someone built a home there without asking for rent. Slowly I nod. "I choose you," I say. "Not the crown, not the throne. You. And whatever roles we build from there, we build them together." He exhales a shuddering breath, like he's been holding it for months. His hands slide from my face to my hips, then to my belly, palms spread wide. "Then that's enough," he whispers. When he kisses me, it isn't a demand or a distraction. It's an answer. The power rises again, but this time it's warm and steady, wrapping around us instead of trying to break free. My body leans into his, not out of fear of falling, but because I finally understand I am not surrendering to a cage. I am choosing a partner who understands the weight of the key. We end up lying sideways on his bed, my head on his chest, his hand never leaving the curve of our child. The lamps burn low, casting us in soft gold. "You know this doesn't solve anything," I murmur. "My family will still push. The council will still scheme." "Of course," he says. "But now they push against us, not just you. And that is a very different battle." I close my eyes, listening to his heartbeat beneath my ear, steady, strong, in rhythm with my own, and the smaller, wilder one between us. For the first time, the future feels less like a trap and more like a path I'm choosing with open eyes, ancient power and all. Labor begins with a lie. "I'm fine," I tell Edward as another tightening clamps around my middle, stealing my breath. "Just a little." The contraction slams all the way through my spine. Uncomfortable. I grit, clutching the edge of the table so hard my knuckles whiten. His eyes narrow. "You just bent steel, Tamara." I follow his gaze to the table leg. The metal support has warped under my grip, twisted like soft wax. "Oh," I say faintly. "That's new." He's bellowing for healers before I can argue. They herd me into the birthing chamber the palace staff prepared weeks ago, all white linens and steaming bowls of herbs, the air sharp with antiseptic and incense. The moment I cross the threshold, the power inside me surges, tasting the space, testing it. The candles flare as if greeting an old friend. "Everyone stays calm," the lead healer says, voice a little too high to be convincing. "Lady Tamara, breathe with the contractions. Your Majesty." "Stays," Edward cuts in, planting himself at my side. "I'm not leaving. I'm too busy riding the next wave of pain to argue. Labor is nothing like the healer pamphlets. It is fire and stone and a great grinding pressure, like the world is trying to push a star through too small a doorway. My wolf paces in frantic circles inside me, torn between panic and fierce wild joy. Each contraction pulls the ancient force tighter. It gathers with the pain, braiding itself into every spasm of muscle. The energy climbs my spine, coils in my chest, burns behind my eyes. The walls of the palace hum faintly, as if feeling every ripple. At some point, I end up on my knees, leaning over the side of the bed, sweat-damp hair sticking to my face. Edward kneels behind me, one arm braced around my shoulders, the other offering his hand. "Crush it," he says. "I can take it." I do. Power crackles where our skin meets visible. This time, tiny sparks jumping between our fingers. He doesn't flinch. He grips back harder, grounding me. "Look at me," he murmurs as another contraction crests. "Don't disappear into it. Stay here." "I hate you," I gasp. "I know," he says, kissing my temple. "You can divorce me after this. We're not married. We'll invent divorce for you." The contraction peaks. Pain tears a scream from my throat, and with it, a burst of energy blasts outward. The windows rattle in their frames. Somewhere in the palace, a chorus of wolves howls in sudden, synchronized response. The healers exchange wide-eyed glances but keep working. "She's progressing quickly," one murmurs. "Faster than expected." "Of course she is," Edward says. "She's never done anything slowly in her life." Hours blur. Time dissolves into waves, pain, breath, brief lulls where Edward grips my shoulders and we breathe together. Then pain again. Between contractions, the world is oddly sharp. The rough weave of the sheets under my fingers, the salt taste of sweat, the flash of fear in a young healer's eyes before she masters it. "Almost there," the lead healer says finally, voice steady. "Tamara, you need to push with the next one." "That's what I've been doing," I snarl. "Now do it angrier," Edward suggests. I would hit him if I could move. The next contraction comes like a tidal wave. I bear down, every muscle straining. The power inside me surges with it, no longer content to be background hum. It rushes to the front, demanding release. "Let it ride with you," Edward pants in my ear. "Don't fight it. Shape it." I am beyond words. I push against the pain, against the fear, against the knowledge that if I lose control now, I could crack the palace in half. The force rises, a roaring, blinding presence. For a heartbeat, I am the river in the historian's book, the moonlit woman glowing from within. Then something gives. Not in me, in the world. There is a sensation like a door opening. Sound drops away. The pain disappears, not because it has ended, but because something more immense has taken center stage. The ancient force bursts outward, but not as a blast, as a wave, controlled, directed. I feel it move through stone and air, through corridors and towers and into the grounds beyond. It rolls across the kingdom like a silent howl, invisible but undeniable. Every wolf feels it. I sense them in that instant, thousands of minds flaring briefly in my awareness. Warriors on night patrol staggering as ancestral echoes flood their veins. Elders gasping as they remember, viscerally, what it was to run under untouched stars. Pups sitting bolt upright in their beds, eyes wide, hearing phantom howls layered atop their own. For a heartbeat, all the fractured pieces of the packs align. Alpha and Omega, feral and civilized, rival and ally, every bond, every bloodline lights up, threads in a vast, luminous web. My body is the center, the conduit, the river around the stone. Terror and awe collide in my chest. Then it recedes, obedient as the tide, flowing back into me, leaving only a lingering hum and the echo of 1,000 spine-deep shivers. Sound rushes back. So does pain, but different now. Focused. Sharp. "One more," the healer urges. "Tamara, now." I roar. Something slick and solid slides free. Hands move between my legs. A wet, furious wail splits the air. "He's here." Someone breathes. "The prince. He's here." The world narrows to the tiny, squirming body lifted into my line of sight. Blood-smeared, red-faced, lungs already impressive. A shock of dark hair plastered to his head. His features are scrunched and new, but the shape of his mouth, the set of his brow, unmistakably Edward's. My heart cracks open. They place him against my chest, and every part of me that isn't exhausted or shaking or terrified melts. He is warm and heavy and impossibly small. His scent is new and ancient all at once, milk and blood and something wild, clean, like the first breath after rain. The power inside me hushes. Not gone, never that. But quiet, watchful, as if satisfied with what it has wrought. Edward makes a sound I've never heard from him before. A choked, broken noise, somewhere between laughter and a sob. "He's perfect," he whispers, touching our son's tiny fingers with a reverent awe usually reserved for sacred relics. "Spirits, Tamara, look what you did." "Pretty sure we both did," I manage, throat raw. He bends, pressing his forehead to mine, one hand cupping our son's back, the other cradling my jaw. His eyes shine. "You're extraordinary," he breathes. "It's not about the power, not in this moment. It's about the fact that I am still here, still myself, holding a child who is both legacy and brand new future." Hours later, the healers have gone, the room dim and quiet. The palace is oddly hushed, as if everyone is still processing the echo of that ancestral wave. Our son sleeps between us, bundled in soft linen, tiny fists curled near his cheeks. Edward lies on his side, head propped on his hand, watching us like he doesn't dare blink. "He already looks like he owns the room," I murmur. He does, Edward says. He's ours. Silence settles, but it's comfortable. We're both too exhausted for politics, too full for fear. Then he speaks, soft but steady. Stay. I turn my head toward him. Not as Luna, he continues. If that word tastes wrong in your mouth, not because my counsel demands it, or your family needs a story to brag about. Stay as my partner, my equal, the woman I choose and who chooses me, title or no. My gaze drops to our son. His chest rises and falls in tiny, determined breaths. This creature will grow up watching whatever choice I make. He'll learn what love looks like from how we live it. Love that cages. Or love that builds doors. I think of the girl who arrived at this palace with treaties and righteous anger, determined never to be swallowed by someone else's life. I think of the woman who just channeled a force older than thrones and stayed standing. I look back at the man who has argued with me, knelt before me, held the rope while I walked the edge of my own power. I want reforms, I say. Real ones, written into law, not just whispered in your chambers. Done, he says immediately. I want my own council, Omega voices, scholars, people who don't agree with you. His mouth quirks. You start a rebellion in my own palace and you want me to sanction it? Yes, done, he repeats. I want the freedom to leave the capital when I need to breathe, I add. To visit my family, to walk in forests that don't have your guards at every tree. His eyes soften. I'll insist on minimal guards, he says. But yes, done. I draw a breath that feels like the first true one in months. Then yes, I say. I'll stay. On my terms. Relief and joy war on his face. Joy wins. He leans across our son and kisses me, gentle and lingering, tasting of salt and something sweeter. No grand coronation, I add when he pulls back. No public vows. I'm not a spectacle. He smiles. Then we keep this between us, a private commitment. Let them guess the rest. If you've read this far, rate this story from 1 to 10, and tell which moment hit you hardest so the next story can go even deeper into what you love most.